Welcome back to the last Daily Rundown of the week. I'm Dan Morfitt, and with me are guests Ian Pattinson and Drew Tosh. Our next story now is about Libya. It's been found out that there's insufficient evidence to charge anybody from MI6 with involvement in the rendition of two men and their families to Libya. Ex-Libyan dissident Abdel Hakim Belhaj says MI6 helped arrange his family's rendition. Sami al-Saadi and his family were also sent to Libya in 2004, and both parties were allegedly tortured and questioned by British intelligence officers. Mr. Belhaj commanded an armed opposition group against Libyan dictator Colonel Muammar Gaddafi, who we eventually helped remove. The lawyers of the families claimed it was a joint CIA and MI6 operation to help Gaddafi round up his enemies. Prosecutors say UK officials did not transfer or ill-treat the alleged victims. So, the question on this is any means necessary for our intelligence forces to take? Any means necessary?
Probably.
Wow.
Well, I think they don't always say there's always casualties in war and stuff. I mean, there's probably a lot more going on than we're ever going to know or realise that these intelligence agencies are involved in. And it's probably not all, positive stuff either, but
we're a democracy. Surely we shouldn't be using torture to extract information from people.
And there's the fact that torture doesn't work. Torture never gets you the... A tortured person will tell you what you want to hear. He won't tell you what you need to hear. If you want him to admit that he's part of a gang that's about to set a bomb off, he'll do it just to stop you putting those electrodes down there.
it's very hard. I mean, how do you know who to believe, really? This could be some disgruntled, family. It could be anything. We don't really know what goes on in any of these circumstances.
Well, the irony in this case is MI6 are being accused of using rendition flights to extract information from Colonel Gaddafi's enemies. And then we know how Libya turned, and from Colonel Gaddafi, who was once our best mate, after being an enemy for so long, then became our enemy again. And we eventually helped supply the Libyan rebels to take him down. So,
somewhere along the line, parts of them became ISIS.
Yeah, and those problems have been seeded by us.
Well, that's not uncommon, though, is it? I mean, we're constantly hearing stories about us selling arms back to people that end up becoming our enemies.
I think that's it's probably a story that's as old as empires. You probably had the Romans setting people up and then knocking them down and finding out that they were against them, and that kind of thing.
But is that right as a leading Western light of supposed democracy and enlightenment?
No, we should be better than that. We should be better than rendition and torture and that kind of thing. If I was the one making the decisions, I'd make some pretty harsh decisions on who I killed and who I didn't kill, but I wouldn't torture people because it doesn't work. It's pointless. It's a waste of energy. And on that part of the whole issue, it makes you as bad as the people you're against.
And on that, is their search for justice never going to happen? Because if you're tortured, if you're giving information under torture, it cannot be used. Could you imagine in a court case of normal British law where violence was used by police officers, say, against a suspect, it would be thrown out of court?
I believe it's disallowed if it's known that the information was taken under duress. It's not allowed legally. So this is one of the reasons why some people are still in jail and not tried, is because any evidence against them was acquired by torture. So any case brought against them would collapse.
And of course, on that point, Guantanamo Bay, the big prison in Cuba that the Americans use for supposed terrorist dissidents, that's still open because of that very, very reason.
I think it's naive to think that just because we're British, our agencies and whatever are, spotless and don't adopt the same tactics as other countries. I don't think we should be shocked by this story.
You can't say just because other countries do it, it's fine for us to.
I'm not saying it's fine for us to, but I think it's naive to assume we don't and to be surprised by this story.
On this then, Drew, would it have been better for some legal process to happen? Would it have been better for these families of al-Saadi and Belhaj to have had their day in court, to take MI6 and make their claims against the state of rendition? Would that have been better?
then well, it's not going to happen because the secret services will say, well, it's national security, you can't. It would have been better if they'd not been taken to Libya. It would have been better if they'd been locked up in a British jail and said, tell you what, we'll let you out if you'll give us true and provable information.
But on that, they couldn't arrest them on UK soil because the acts of terror weren't necessarily against the UK. They were against our then ally, who
In that case, even better, don't arrest them. Bring them in for a chat and say, we can protect you from the Libyans if you will give us any useful information.
And that would have been useful considering how the Libyan fights continued and continues to this day as well. We try on the Daily Rundown to solve all the problems of the world, but we just can't do it every time.
I feel possibly, we need the Wizard of Oz to fix some of these issues tonight.
Sadly, you're wearing brown Chelsea boots tonight.
Yes, it's not going to happen.
Not Ruby Red
No, a single pair of red shoes.
But we are, like the witch, we are melting. So keep going.
Right, let's move on to our next story. The United Nations has ruled that Ireland's abortion laws are a breach of women's human rights. A panel of human rights experts ruled that the law, which makes access to the procedure illegal, subjects women to discrimination and cruel, inhuman or degrading treatment, and have recommended a change to the law. Amnesty International have called the decision groundbreaking and have said that the ruling would advance women's rights in Ireland and beyond. The case hinges on Amanda Mellett, who was forced to travel to Liverpool to undergo an abortion in 2011 after she found out the fetus she was carrying had a fatal abnormality. So what are our cousins across the water still holding on to this law for? Why?
It's religion. Pretty sure it's religion. It's really weird because...
We haven't talked about religion at all tonight, though.
No, not at all. No. Didn't same-sex marriage become legal in Ireland last year, the year before?
It was last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yet they're still holding these pretty out of date rules for abortion.
But looking at what's happening in America, where abortion clinics are being shut down, firebombed, on a state level, legislators are finding loopholes to say abortion's bad. Surely the UN have to go for the United States of America next.
You have to hope. But that's not the country as a whole, that's states.
State by state.
State by state. If the Republicans get in November, then they might push for it to become a national thing, but I believe that it takes a bit of doing to overthrow something from the Supreme Court.
Isn't it daft in 2016, Drew, that we're still talking about the woman's right to choose?
I'm kind of really surprised and shocked that I wasn't even aware it was still that difficult. It takes you back to, was it Vera Drake and backstreet abortions and all those sort of like hideous things that women had to deal with back in God knows when, the sort of the 60s, maybe before 50s, whatever.
Yeah, backstreet abortionists and all the horrors that's...
Yeah, I mean, in the case of this woman, she had been told that it was an abnormal fetus. I think she maybe just didn't feel she could cope or have an option. She considered everything, and the fact that she is actually American, I think, but she married somebody from over there. So she still, and lives there, so she still has to go under that law, but you have to go to Liverpool it's a stressful and traumatic enough thing without having to, leave where you live, get in a train and secretly just do it when no one's noticing. Or it's grim, it's very, very grim, and you're right, it's religion, and that's also a theme to most of tonight's stories, unfortunately.
It's ridiculous. I was going to say it's ridiculous that religion has such an important part in state practices, but yeah, Libya, Israel, Palestine, everything seems to be on that cusp of what one man might have said in a book against what another man might have said in somebody else's book. We are not clean of this ourselves in the UK because the Abortion Act from, I think, 1968 is still not law in Northern Ireland necessarily, and that's why we still have cases there. I think 1967 Abortion Act, they don't have to take the full thing, so we're almost looking as that Ireland just across the Irish Sea is completely different from us when the woman has had a right to choose here for so many years.
I just have these visions of terrified young girls over there, who, and it happens, God knows we know what happens, teenage pregnancies and stuff, how, in addition to the scare of that, have to deal with the flack and the issues surrounding, not want to have a baby, or God forbid, trying to do something to miscarry themselves.
Yeah.
And
It's just like something like the Dark Ages.
So many of the people who are anti-abortion don't like the idea of children learning about contraception. They're partly causing the problem that they're compounding it by making their population ignorant to the possibilities of contraception. If fewer people were pregnant, got pregnant accidentally, fewer people would be having abortions.
Yeah.
If you want to stop abortions, introduce contraception properly.
Well, it's another one of those problems that I think we've almost solved on the Daily Rundown.
I think so, yeah. I'm very depressed now, but let's crack on.
Gentlemen, good work tonight. Right, it's time for another break now on the Daily Rundown. Next, we look at the Great British Muslim phone-in. And a politician has lied. Shock horror. See you in a bit.